Good day everyone. This is video lesson in ITEP 101 or Human to Computer Interaction. This video lesson will cover the first part of Module 3, which is the lesson entitled User-Centered Design. The topics here include what is User-Centered Design or UCD, UCD examples, key aspects of UCD, Iterative Design Process, and HCI Design Models. So let's proceed to the first topic. What is UCD or User-Centered Design? As defined here, UCD is an iterative design process in which the designers focus on the users and their needs in each phase of the design process. In UCD, design teams involve users throughout the design process via a variety of research and design techniques to create highly usable and accessible products for them. Again, the goal is usability. UCD is an iterative process. What do we mean by that? In UCD, designers use a mixture of investigative methods and tools, such as surveys and interviews, and generative ones, such as brainstorming, to develop an understanding of user needs. So here is the process for UCD. So let me explain this further. Generally, each iteration of the UCD approach involves 4 distinct phases. So first, this phase. As designers working in teams, we try to understand the context in which users may use a system. And then, we identify and specify the user's requirements. A design phase follows, in which the design team develops solutions. The team then proceeds to an evaluation phase. Here, you assess the outcomes of the evaluation against the user's context and requirements to check how well a design is performing. More specifically, you see how close it is to a level that matches the user's specific context and satisfies all of their relevant needs. From here, the team makes further iterations of these 4 phases and they continue until the evaluation results are satisfactory. User-centered design is an iterative process that focuses on an understanding of the users and their context in all stages of design and development. So here, you always consider the requirements of the users. You always consider your users. UCD considers the whole user experience. What do we mean by that? In UCD, you base your projects upon an explicit understanding of your users, the task, and the environments. The aim of the process is to capture and address the whole user experience. So in order to achieve this, the design team should include professionals from across multiple disciplines, such as ethnographers, psychologists, software and hardware engineers. But your design teams depends on the type of system that you are developing, as well as domain experts, the stakeholders, the users themselves. The experts may carry out evaluations of the produced designs using design guidelines and criteria. However, you should bear 2 crucial points in mind. First, to span the entire user experience, you must involve the users for evaluation. Second, you'll need to ensure long-term monitoring of use. UCD is an investment, and in investment, in UCD, it usually pays off. When your design teams brings the users into every stage of the design process, you invest your effort and other resources into a powerful way of finding out what works well and what doesn't and why. Your users are an early warning system you can use to course, correct, and fine-tune your design. They can expose many aspects, positive and negative, the team may have overlooked regarding such vital areas as usability and accessibility. That's why It's so important to understand how powerful the benefits of a user-centered design approach are. As David Benyon said, being human-centered is an additional cost to any project. So, businesses rightly ask whether taking so much time to talk to people, produce prototype designs, and so on is worthwhile. The answer is a fundamental yes. So there are four ways in which UCD pays off. The first one, with closer user involvement, products are more likely to meet users' expectations and requirements. This leads to increased sales and lower costs incurred by customer services. Second, systems designers tailor products for people in specific contexts and with specific tasks, thereby reducing the chances of situations with a higher risk of human error arising. In short, UCD leads to safer products. Third, putting designers in close contact with users means a deeper sense of empathy emerges. This is essential in creating ethical designs that respect privacy and the quality of life. Lastly, by focusing on all users of a product, the designers can recognize the diversity of cultures and human values through UCD. This is a step in the right direction towards creating sustainable businesses. So let us have examples of UCD. UCD has a human bias in its DNA. By beginning with humans, their hopes, fears, and needs, the designers tend to discover what's most desirable, but that's only one lens through which we glance at our solutions. So one example is the Duolingo app. The Duolingo app is a language learning app that takes simplification to a new level. Its simplistic interface allows users to learn a language easily through the process of completing a task. Here is an example of the UI for the Duolingo app. Duolingo turns language learning into a game by letting users advance to new categories after completing a section. This process helps keep the user engaged while meeting their goal of learning a new language. The second example is Instacart. Instacart, when you use this app, the user will immediately notice that they have designed their interface with well-defined text to accommodate users who are visually impaired. To add, they have also applied UCD to the cart section of their page. Users are able to add items to their cart directly from the main page. This feature is much faster in comparison to services that require the user to view their cart when increasing the amount of an item they already selected. The third example is Spotify. Spotify is a leading example of turning the needs and desires of users into a highly valuable product. Before their service was available, users usually purchased their music on a song-per-song basis. For most, purchasing music in this way was not financially feasible. Spotify created its service to address this issue and provide users with an easier way to access music. Since its development, users can now access music in one place for a standard monthly fee. So those are the three examples of UCD. What are the key aspects of UCD? The primary principles involved in UCD aim to ensure that usability is the main focus that throughout the entire development process. So the first key aspect of UCD is a clear understanding of the users, the task, and the environments. Second, active involvement of users. Third, appropriate allocation of function between user and system. Fourth, iterative design approach. And lastly, a multidisciplinary design teams. So now let's talk about the iterative design process. Since UCD applies iterative design approach, we need to understand how this process goes. Iterative design is a process where an interface is progressively developed and improved over a series of iterations. each of the result of user testing and feedback. The iterative design cycle involves design, test, and redesign. These phases operate in a continual cycle that designs are continually evaluated and improved. So here are the phases of iterative design. First, specify the use context and the user's needs. You need to know your users. You need to know who will use the system and the needs of those users. If you have several levels of users, you need to know all of them. Whether they be manager, clients, the staff, you still need to specify the staff. What are the functions they need in the system? You really have to specify your users because again, they are the main focus of your development. Second, specify business requirements. So you have to know the process, the procedures on which they are working with, and you need to know how to turn these procedures into your system development. So dito na papasok yung pag-iisip ng mga functions, paano mo to i-convert dun sa system, and so on. And then the third one is to build the design solutions from rough concept to finished design. Okay, so you will build now the system according to the user context, the needs of the users, and the business requirements. And then the fourth phase is to evaluate designs using usability testing. So ngayon, ipapa-evaluate mo na yung design mo dun sa mga main stakeholders mo or dun sa mga users mo. And then afterwards is the implementation or the development and the delivery ng product. And then the sixth is the deployment, wherein the final product is evaluated as consumer needs change. So these are just the phases. Again, when you say iterative design, ito yung paulit-ulit, paikot-ikot ka dun sa process hanggat sa makapag-produce ka ng mas magandang product as you go through several iterations. So for us to better understand, let us try to compare the traditional way versus the iterative design. So in the traditional design and prototyping, the step one is you finalize the design before you have the opportunity to prototype or to test it. So tapos na yung design mo, bago ka daw makapagawa ng prototype or bago mo siya matest. Step 2, create a prototype based on this final design. Third, test the prototype internally without getting end user feedback yet. Fourth, create a final prototype for end users to test. And step 5, start the process all over again from scratch if end users identify problems with the design. So this is so costly, the traditional way. Now let's proceed to iterative design and prototyping. So the first step, create a working design rather than a final design and start making prototypes based on this design as early in the process as possible. So meron ka ng working design versus dito sa traditional na meron kang final design. So yung working design mo, gagamit ka ng rapid prototyping to create and test multiple iterations of the product. And then, step 3, ask a group of end users to test the prototype. So yung end users mo, itatest na yung prototype at magbibigay sila ng feedback. Pwede ka rin magbigay ng multiple prototypes na matest nila para they have the options, the choices kung ano yung mas mag-work. And then yung fourth, i-adjust nila yung designs tsaka yung prototypes mo based on the feedback ng end users. Yung panglima, you will just repeat the testing and prototyping phase as many times as needed until you have a final design your end users are happy with. So all throughout the process and all throughout the iterations, you are involving your users. As compared to this, you already have the final design and then tsaka pa lang nila itetest. Tapos pag may problem, ulit ko ulit dun sa designing. So lahat ng negative dito sa traditional design na address ng iterative design and prototyping. So now let's talk about the different benefits of iterative design. So the first one is greater efficiency and faster time to market. So iterative design and prototyping is typically more efficient than a traditional design process. Why? Because creating new designs and prototypes is fast and simple. The initial design process only lasts a few days to a few weeks depending on the complexity of the design. But the goal is to get a working prototype of the design as quickly as possible so that engineers can identify and fix potential mechanical problems, material challenges, or other details that cannot be easily foreseen during the design stage. The second benefit is a lower product development cost. Iterative design and prototyping relies on cost-effective tools like CAD software, rapid prototyping technologies, and other machines, even 3D printers. So, itong mga tools na to ay pinapadali na makapag-produce ng multiple prototypes at relatively little cost. So, mas effective ito, cost-effective, than pulling most of your resources and labor sa isa lamang na prototype. Especially kung yung prototype na to ay hindi niya mamimit ultimately yung needs ng mga users mo. So, mas maunti din yung oras na nagugugol mo sa overall product development process na makakapag-save ka din sa labor cost at mapapadali ang iyong return of investment. So, the third is a thorough product testing. Ang isang advantage ng iterative design at ng prototyping ay cannot be overlooked na hindi mo pwedeng santabi lamang ay yung impact sa quality ng products na ginagawa mo. This process relies on thorough testing and feedback with every new iteration. You will know exactly which design details work and which don't. This makes it much more likely that your end users will enjoy your final product and you won't have to recall defective products after it's on the market. So the fourth benefit is a fewer redesigns. So a full redesign slows your product development process down significantly and adds to the total cost of the project. Iterative design helps prevent this by encouraging designers and engineers to iron out serious flaws in the design as early as possible. In the traditional design process, you might not catch certain flaws until after the prototype is complete. And by this time, you'd have wasted weeks or even months on the design, therefore cost that was flawed from the start. When you find and avoid major issues in the first few days or weeks of the design process, you can spend the remaining weeks or months making minor adjustments to the design that increase the quality of the product. And lastly, you have most or more user-friendly products. Why? Because end users are typically involved much earlier in the process. You're more likely to create an end product that they actually find useful. Sometimes it's quite difficult to know what end users' pain points are. And if you overlook these pain points, your product will be less effective. Asking them for feedback throughout the design and prototyping process can inform your design and give you an edge in your industry. So this is how iterative design looks like. Okay, even before you can launch a product, you have somehow iron out the flaws in the design because you have involved the users and you have multiple iterations in each phase. Now let's talk about the different design models that applies UCD or applies iterative design approach. So we have the STAR life cycle, interface design, and usability engineering, and lucid design framework. I am going to discuss the first two, the STAR life cycle and the interface design and usability engineering. Okay, so let's start with the STAR life cycle. So basically, this is the illustration of the STAR life cycle. So dito, yung evaluation, yung center ng design process. So here, the team must be doing evaluation at all stages. Itong 5 stages na to, nung design process mo, you will move around the STAR from analysis clockwise. So from your analysis to requirement specifications to conceptual design and formal design, prototyping, and implementation, lahat yan, you will involve evaluation. So we can consider two modes of design activity. The first one is the analytic mode. So yung analytic mode, it's a top-down approach, organizing and formal, working from the system's view towards the user's view. Yung isa naman ay yung tinatawag na synthetic mode. Ito naman yung bottom-up, free thinking, creative and ad hoc, working from the user's view to the system's view. So interface designers, if you're gonna implement the star life cycle, you as a designer need to flip between these two modes. The star life cycle captures something important about the real design process that we need to work from both ends of the problem, from the user's perspective and from the perspective of the technology, but it doesn't tell us very much about the ordering and nature of the different processes involved in design and how to move a design forward. So this is another model, the interface design and usability engineering. Okay, so here, the process goes from left to right, where each major block, here we have 4 blocks, showing the typical things that interface designers have to do. So you have the goal, the methods to achieve the goal, and the product that you will produce as you go through the methods and as you achieve your goal. Okay, so in practice, not every step or method is followed. Rather, the interface developer will choose methods appropriate to the time and budget of the project. Basically, there are 4 goals: articulate who the users are and their key task, to brainstorm the design, to have a refined designs, and to have a completed designs. So to do that, you would have to apply several methods. And then these are the products that you will produce as you use these methods. So for the products under this goal, you have the user and the task descriptions. For the brainstorm design, you have throwaway paper prototypes. For the refined designs, you have a testable prototype. And for the completed design, you have the alpha, beta systems, or complete specifications. So that's it for our lesson for today. So far, the concepts that has been discussed are: what is user-centered design, the UCD examples, the key aspects of UCD, the iterative design process, and the different HCI design models. Do you have any questions? So if there's none, thank you so much. And that's it for our lesson for today.